He knew which was the right tree at once, partly because it stood at the very centre, and partly because the great silver apples with which it was loaded shone so, and cast a light of their own down on the shadowy places where the sunlight did not reach. He walked straight across to it, picked an apple and put it into the breast pocket of his Norfolk jacket. But he couldn't help looking at it and smelling at it before he put it away. It would have been better if he'd had not. A terrible thirst and hunger came over him, and a longing to taste the fruit. He hastily put it into his pocket. But there were plenty of others. Could it be wrong to taste one? After all, he thought, the notice on the gate might not have been exactly an order. It might have been only a piece of advice, and who cares about advice? Or even if it were an order, would he be disobeying if by eating an apple? He'd already obeyed the part about taking one for others. While he was thinking all of this, he happened to look up through the branches towards the top of the tree. There on a branch above his head, a wonderful bird was roosting. I say roosting because it almost seemed asleep, but not quite. The tiniest slit of one eye was open. It was larger than an eagle, its breast saffron, its head crested with scarlet, and its tail purple. And it just shows, said Diggory afterwards, when he was telling the story to others, that you can never be too careful in these magical places. You never know what may be watching you. But I think Diggory would not have taken an apple for himself in any case. Things like "do not steal," I think, were hammered into boys' heads a good deal harder in those days than they are now. Still, we can never be certain. Diggory was just turning to go back to the gates when he stopped to have one last look around. He got a terrible shock. He was not alone. There, only a few yards away from him, stood the witch. She was just throwing away the core of an apple which she had eaten. The juice was darker than you would expect and had made a horrid stain around her mouth. Diggory guessed at once that she must have climbed in over the wall, and he began to see that there might be some sense in that last line about getting your heart's desire and getting despair along with it. For the witch looked stronger and prouder than ever, and even, in a way, triumphant. But her face was deadly white, white as salt. All this flashed through Diggory's mind in a second. Then he took to his heels and ran for the gates as hard as he could pelt, the witch after him. As soon as he was out, the gates closed behind him of their own accord. That gave him the lead, but not for long. By the time he'd reached the others and was shouting out, "Quick, get on, Polly, get up, Fledge," the witch had climbed the wall or vaulted over it and was close behind him again. "Stay where you are," cried Diggory, turning round to face her, "or we'll vanish. Don't come an inch nearer." "Foolish boy," said the witch. "Why do you run from me? I mean you no harm. If you do not stop and listen to me now, you will miss some knowledge that would have made you happy all your life." "Well, I don't want to hear it, thanks," said Diggory. But he did. "I know what errand you've come on," continued the witch, "for it was I who was close beside you in the woods last night and heard all your counsels. You've plucked fruit in the garden yonder. You have it in your pocket now, and you're going to carry it back untasted to the lion for him to eat, for him to use. You simpleton. Do you not know what that fruit is? I will tell you. It is the apple of youth, the apple of life. I know, for I have tasted it, and I feel already such changes in myself that I know I shall never grow old or die. Eat it, boy, eat it, and you and I will live forever and be king and queen of this whole world, or your world if we decide to go back there." "No thanks," said Diggory. I don't know I care much about living on and on after everyone I know is dead. I'd rather live an ordinary time and die and go to heaven. But what about this mother of yours, whom you pretend to love so much? What's she got to do with it? Said Diggory. Do you not see, fool, that one bite of that apple would heal her? You have it in your pocket. We're here by ourselves and the lion is far away. Use your magic. Go back to your own world. A minute later, you can be at your mother's bedside giving her the fruit. 5 minutes later, you'll see the colour coming back to her face. She will tell you that the pain is gone. Soon she will tell you she feels stronger. Then she'll fall asleep. Think of that. Hours of sweet natural sleep without pain, without drugs. Next day, everyone will be saying how wonderfully she's recovered. She'll soon be quite well again. All will be well again. Your home will be happy again. You will be like other boys. Oh, gasped Diggory as if he'd been hurt and put his hand to his head. For he now knew that the most terrible choice lay before him. What has the lion ever done for you, that you should be his slave? Said the witch. What can he do to you once you're back in your own world? And what would your mother think if she knew that you could have taken her pain away and given her back her life and saved your father's heart from being broken, and that you wouldn't? You'd rather run messages for a wild animal in a strange world that is no business of yours. I don't think he's a wild animal, said Diggory in a dried-up sort of voice. He is... I don't know. Then he's something worse, said the witch. Look what he's done to you already. Look how heartless he's made you. That is what he does to everyone who listens to him. Cruel, pitiless boy. You would let your mother die rather than... Oh, shut up, said the miserable Diggory, still in a small voice. Do you think I don't see? But I promised. Ah, but you didn't know what you were promising, and no one can prevent you. Mother herself, said Diggory, getting the words out with difficulty, wouldn't like it. Awfully strict about keeping promises and not stealing and all that sort of thing. She'll tell me not to do it, quick as lightning, if she was here. But she need never know, said the witch, speaking more sweetly than you could have thought anyone with so fierce a face could speak. You wouldn't tell her how you'd got the apple. Your father need never know. No one in your world need know anything about this whole story. You needn't take the little girl back with you, you know. And that was where the witch made her fatal mistake. Of course, Diggory knew that Polly could get away by her own ring as easily as he could get away by his. But apparently the witch didn't know this. And the meanness of the suggestion that he should leave Polly behind suddenly made all the other things the witch had been saying to him sound false and hollow. And even in the midst of all his misery, his head suddenly cleared, and he said in a different and a much louder voice, Look here, where do you come into all of this? Why are you so precious fond of my mother all of a sudden? What's it got to do with you? What's your game? Good for you, Diggs, whispered Polly in his ear. Quick, get away now. She hadn't dared to say anything all through the argument because, you see, it wasn't her mother who was dying. Up then, said Diggory, heaving her onto Fledge's back and then scrambling up as quickly as he could. The horse spread its wings. Go then, fools, cried the witch. Think of me, boy, when you lie old and weak and dying, and remember how you threw away the chance of endless youth. It won't be offered to you again. They were already so high that they could only just hear her, nor did the witch, wasting any time, gaze up at them. They saw her set off northward down the slope of the hill. They'd started early that morning, and what happened in the garden hadn't taken very long, so that Fledge and Polly both said they'd easily get back to Narnia before nightfall. Diggory never spoke on the way back, and the others were shy of speaking to him. He was very sad, and he wasn't sure all the time he'd done the right thing. But whenever he remembered the shining tears in Aslan's eyes, he became sure. All day, Fledge flew steadily with untiring wings, eastward with the river to guide him, through the mountains and over the wild wooded hills, and then over the great waterfall and down to the woods of Narnia were darkening by the shadow of the mighty cliff, till at last, with the sky glowing red with sunset behind them, he saw the place where many creatures were gathered together by the riverside. And soon he could see Aslan himself in the midst of them. Fledge glided down, spread out his 4 legs, closed his wings, and landed cantering. Then he pulled up. The children dismounted. Diggory saw all the animals, dwarfs, satyrs, nymphs, and other things drawing back to the left and right to make a way for him. He walked up to Aslan and handed him the apple and said, "I've brought you the apple you wanted, sir.